October 2022 and I've headed down to the Dorset seaside and the resort town of Bournemouth. Located at the centre of the sweeping Poole Bay with the longest stretch of sand beaches on England's south coast and benefiting from well below national average rainfall, it's unsurprising that Bournemouth has become a popular seaside resort town. A big change to a location that prior to 1800 was a largely remote and barren heathland used only by smugglers. In 1835, after inheriting his dad's estate, Sir George William Taps Jervis looked to the success of the growing resorts of Weymouth and Brighton and decided that his lands would be an ideal place to try and replicate the success. With the coming of a railway, the town was soon booming, and Bournemouth established itself as one of the main seaside resorts in Britain. And whilst the traditional bucket and spade seaside tourist faded away with the warmth of the Spanish costas in the 1960s, the town pivoted to become a conference destination, picking up business trade. The beach sits at the foot of a long run of sandstone cliffs, punctuated by chines that allow easy access down to the beaches and seafront, and with the valley of the River Bourne forming the backbone of the centre of the town as it passes down to the seafront, entering the sea by the pier. The town boasts two piers, Bournemouth Pier in the centre of town and Boscombe Pier about a mile and a half to the east, and at one time also boasted three cliff railways, East, West and Fisherman's Walk, a testament to the hilly nature of the town. East Cliff Railway between the two piers was in operation until 2016, when a landslip caused significant damage to the track and cliffside. And over 6 years later, at the time of visiting in 2022, the lift remains out of operations, with the damage from the landslip still clearly visible. The walk between the East Cliff and the pier is a pleasant stroll past colourful beach huts, painted in gradually changing shades to create a rainbow effect. And, if you look carefully, a small herd of goats that have been grazing the scrub of the cliffs since 2020. The lower gardens in the centre of Bournemouth mark the transition down from the retail and restaurant quarter of the city to the seafront, built around the River Bourne as it flows its last few hundred yards down to the sea. In the upper part of the gardens is the town aviary. Located here for over 50 years, the aviary is home to around 200 birds, a mixture of those born in the aviary and donations from locals who are unable to look after their own birds, across a number of different species. Down on the seafront, a Ferris wheel allows you to take in the view over the town and seafront as it rises up 50 metres above the seafront over the pier and lower gardens. A full rotation taking a little over a minute, with a couple of rotations included on your journey. Next door is the main pier of the town. The first pier was a simple wooden jetty completed in 1856, but swiftly replaced within 5 years by a much longer wooden pier. Though the original wooden piles had to be replaced with cast iron ones after just 5 years as they were being destroyed by shipworms. Just 1 year later, the end of the pier was swept away in a storm, and the final nail in the coffin for this second pier came in 1876 when another storm caused further collapses, rendering the pier too short for the steamboat traffic it was designed to serve. A new pier was opened in 1880, which survived until the pier was, along with all other piers in the south and east of England, demolished in 1940 as a precaution against Nazi invasion. Reopened in 1946, refurbished in 1950 and then heavily rebuilt in the 1960s, the pier took on its current form following further repairs in the late 1970s. Today the pier has a large leisure complex on the shoreward end and a small theatre complex in the middle, whilst the tower has been built on the seaward end, enabling people to zip wire down onto the beach. From the sea end of the pier, there are excellent views on a sunny day right along the length of the bay, from Hensixbury Head in the east all the way through to Sandbanks, the entrance to Poole Harbour, and further on to the Isle of Purbeck in the west. The easiest way to reach the Isle of Purbeck is to take the Sandbanks chain ferry. The chain ferry is, in reality, a floating bridge that's hauled across the channel on a chain to keep it on track and allow powering of the vessel to be housed on land rather than on the ferry itself. Once across the channel, you're on the Isle of Purbeck, a peninsula that juts out from the Dorset coast. From the viewpoint at Studland, you get views across the Isle and back up the Dorset coast. The main town on the Isle is Swanage on the eastern coast, but perhaps the most famous part of the Isle are the picturesque ruins of Corfe Castle. Sitting above the village of the same name, the castle can trace its history back to William the Conqueror, who had a motte and bailey castle built on a hill overlooking a gap in the Purbeck Hills shortly after he took control of England in 1066. After the initial construction of lots of castles to quell the recently invaded population, work was started to make the originally temporary structures a little more permanent, with major structural change taking place during the 12th and 13th centuries, rebuilding the castle in stone. The castle remained a royal property until Elizabeth I sold it to her Lord Chancellor Sir Christopher Hatton in 1572. In 1635, the seeds of the castle's destruction were sown when it was sold to Sir John Banks, Attorney General to Charles I. In 1642, the English Civil War broke out, and by the following year, most of Dorset was under parliamentarian control. Banks was in Oxford with the king, but his men, led by his wife Lady Mary Banks, held the castle for the royal cause. The parliamentarian forces besieged the castle for 6 weeks until Lady Banks was relieved by royalist forces. By 1645, the tide of war had turned to the parliamentarian side, with Corfe Castle being one of the last remaining royalist strongholds in southern England. Once again, the castle was besieged, and this time, by disguising parliamentarian soldiers as a reinforcement party, the castle was captured, though Lady Banks and her garrison were allowed to leave. Following the end of the Civil War, Parliament voted to slight or demolish the castle, giving it its current appearance. After restoration in 1660, the Banks family regained their properties, but decided to leave the castle in ruins and build a new house. And as a ruin, the castle remained, with only limited archaeological excavations carried out briefly in 1883 and nothing more until the 1950s. Upon his death in 1981, Ralph Banks bequeathed the entire estate to the National Trust to take into the care of the nation. The keep had to be closed in 2006 due to dangerous degradation of the building, but it was reopened following extensive conservation work just 2 years later. During the restoration work, an appearance door was found in the keep, believed to have been designed for Henry I and indicating that the castle may have been one of the most important in England at the time. As it's not picturesque enough with a ruined castle, the whole otherworldly feel of Corfe is added to by the presence of the Swanage Railway. Originally a branch line of the national network from Wareham, the line closed to passengers in 1972, but was soon being preserved and reopened as a heritage railway, with steam trains once again running past Corfe Castle by 1993. In 2002, the line was reconnected back to the national rail network 30 years to the day from when it was closed, and just 15 years later, South Western Railway started operating occasional summer weekend services from Waterloo. However, even today, the priority is still to steam trains, and a scene of a steam train passing the ruins of Corfe Castle looks every bit the Heritage Railway poster. Bournemouth is located on the southwestern main line between London Waterloo and Weymouth, with frequent services to London taking just under 2 hours to make the journey. There are also 2 hourly cross-country services to Birmingham in 3 hours and Manchester in just under 5.